Welcome to the Just Ingredients podcast. I'm Cara Lynn, and here we talk all things nourishing to the mind, body, and soul. This is a place where you can find just good ingredients to life. Sara-Chana Silverstein is a master herbalist, classical homeopath, and board-certified lactation consultant, and appears on local and national TV news affiliates across the country such as CBS, ABC, NBC, and Fox News, where she teaches people how they can safely integrate alternative medicine with conventional medicine. Sara-Chana runs a women's clinic in Brooklyn, New York, and has for the past 30 years. Her specialty is pediatrics and women's health. She is also the author of the best-selling book Moodtopia, Tames Moods, De-stress and find balance using herbal remedies, aromatherapy, and more, which has been #1 on Amazon and has appeared on at least 15 must-read lists. She recently opened an online herbal school called Moodtopia Academy, where she teaches hundreds of women and men about the medicinal benefits of herbal and homeopathic medicine. Welcome back to the show, everyone. Today, I am really excited for our guest because she has been on here multiple times, and every episode she does, you listeners absolutely love. She gets thousands and thousands of listens, and I know it just is stuff that's easily doable at home, and she gives little great tips and advice. So welcome to the show, Sara-Chana. Again, like I said, I'm so honored to have you back on our show again.
Thank you so much. And I love that we're out here educating people because it's so confusing. Like when I first became an herbalist, there were like 2 products and now there's hundreds. And like when you go into the stores and you say, this one's good and this one, like don't buy. We were just discussing this before we opened up. There's so many not reliable herbal products on the market, but herbs work. And you have to have the right product and know what to look for. And I want to begin by saying that, you know, I was listening to a bunch of your podcasts and looking back at your Instagram, and a good herbal product has 2 ingredients. 2. It has the herb and grain alcohol, or the herb and a glycerite. So we don't even have to learn complicated words, and no one can really trick us because that's what an herbal product is. Or it's just a dried herb. Like you can make a tea with just a dried herb. What's the ingredients? Dandelion, gudacola, skullcap. So I just wanted to open up that like this method of healing ourselves and our children is completely what you're discussing.
Well, and I love your philosophy though, because I remember you saying this in the other shows. So maybe we should just start with this, that you love herbs, but you also are like, be smart and go to the doctor when you need the doctor. You're not going to fix a broken bone with some herbs, but you can help support the pain with some herbs, right? So maybe just tell them a little bit about yourself and this background and your belief in all of this.
Sure. Thank you so much. So I'm a master herbalist and a classical homeopath. I'm also an international board certified lactation consultant. And in classical homeopathy and lactation, we really learn a lot of anatomy and physiology and disease process. We take disease and healing very, very seriously. And in my practice, go get an MRI. If we need it, it's such a phenomenal tool. And like you said, if someone breaks a bone, it used to be that midwives were bone setters. And that is part of midwifery, by the way, to learn how to set a bone. But nowadays, go get an x-ray, go get a cast. But then you can take an herb that can help knit the bone. So I'm very into combining allopathic with herbal medicine in the same day, the same household, in the same family.
Yeah, I love that philosophy. And so I love that we're going to talk about children today and children using herbs. And let's just put this out there. Children can definitely use herbs to benefit them, right?
100%. You know, when you think about our grandmothers and our great-grandmothers from cultures all over the world, like everybody gave chamomile tea, from a colicky baby to a terrible tooth tantrum to that teenager having problems falling asleep. So chamomile we don't even think of as an herb, and it's an herb. We don't think about fennel, but fennel has been used for digestion, and dill is also helps with digestion. So Herbs have been used for thousands of years. They say that 85% of the world relies on herbal medicine for most of their care. In the States and Canada, we've kind of lost that wise woman herbal knowledge. So my goal with shows like this is to empower and share with women the amazing powers of herbs. And I want to say one thing that's mind-blowing. This has been my thought for the week, okay? So a kid comes to me, they have chronic sinus infections, and I can give them an herbal combination and their sinus is clear. A kid can come to me, they have fluid in their ears, and I can give them an herb that will work. But what's interesting is if I give that child with fluid in their ear an herbal combination for a urinary tract infection, they're not going to get better. And if I have a child with a urinary tract infection and I give them sinus herbs, it's not going to clear. So even though I've been an herbalist for over 30 years, I don't understand, how does that plant know to go to the sinuses? How does Yerba Santa know to go to the sinuses? And how does goldenrod know to go to the urinary tract? So we're only at the forefront of understanding the wisdom of these plants. Bizarre.
Well, nature is incredible, and the plants and the herbs and things are so medicinal, so nourishing to our bodies, so many amazing things. And so let's just talk about some of these things that kids deal with and how herbs can help them. And so I love that you talk about that there are certain herbs that can help kids with concentration, because this is a big problem in school these days. Teachers are talking about that the kids can't concentrate. They've got ADD or ADHD and focus is a hard thing. And so how could we help our kids with herbs?
Sure. So I want to preface this first by saying that remember that kids are created to run and jump and create and build tree houses and run through the sprinklers. So when we're talking about concentration, I want to just begin by saying that I've seen kids that can't concentrate in class find a frog in a river, and they are concentrating on that frog more than anything in the world. And you have another kid that's figuring out how a kite works, and they are laser focused. And this is another discussion, created in a way that kids can be creative and focus, of course. But let's talk about that plant medicine. So an herb called rosemary, it's a spice. We've been using it for thousands of years. Actually helps clear a foggy brain and helps you concentrate. So for my older students, ones that are in high school or university or medical school, you literally can take the essential oil of rosemary, put a couple drops in the palm of your hand, kind of rub them together and inhale. And I'll have clients that are sitting through LSATs or MCATs, and they bring in their little bottle of rosemary. And when they start to get tired or, their mind is drifting, that rosemary increases blood flow to the brain and helps you focus. What I love for little kids, and it's not popular now, so we're on the forefront, as you are, of course, all the time. There's a new form of herbs called gemotherapy. Gemo in Latin means bud, and it's the bud of the plant. So we call it stem cell therapy with the stem cells of a plant. So you have a bud of a plant, and that bud can turn into a flower, and then a fruit, and then it can form into, and then it falls off, and then the leaves change color. So what happens is when you have a bud of a plant, it has this potential to actualize into many different forms. So with gemotherapy, if we take the gemo of rosemary, it's so easy to take. Those of you that are listening, I'm going to try to describe it. It comes in these little teeny tiny bottles. You screw off the cap, and you can take the diluted gemo of the rosemary, put a couple drops on a child's tongue. It tastes very lovely, and that can help them focus during school. So if you have a little child that is all over the place, first of all, you have to compliment them about it. I wish I had your energy. I mean, how many people in their 50s wouldn't love the energy of a 2-year-old, right? So we want to compliment that energy. Then we're going to say, this is going to help you focus and listen to the teacher. And if you have a child that's a little bit older, you can send them to school with a gemo, And they can take it 3 to 5 times during the day when they feel that their concentration is waning.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so the Gemo version of the rosemary, does it look like an essential oil bottle?
Yes, it does. So I have in front of me an essential oil bottle, and this is not for internal use. This is a Gemo that's around the same size, and this is for internal use. What I love about Gemos is a couple drops go a long way. So we can also use the plant ginkgo. Now, I want to say that I have here, those of you that can't see and those of you that can, this is a tincture bottle. So you can also, and we've spoken in previous classes together about tinctures, you could give ginkgo and the rosemary in a tincture form. A tincture is when you take the plant, put grain alcohol over it, let it sit for 6 or 8 weeks and strain it. You can do this also. So you could get the essential of the tincture, of rosemary or ginkgo and give it to your child in the morning and give it to them when they come back from school. What I love about the Gemo is you can literally keep it in their backpack if they're a little bit older. So we spoke about rosemary. Let's talk about ginkgo. Ginkgo is a wonderful, beautiful plant, tree, the leaves of the tree, and it becomes green in the spring. And we make it into medicine when the leaves become yellow. It's one of the only plants that we wait until it starts to disintegrate and break down. Because when it goes from the green to the yellow, that's when it helps with the concentration. So ginkgo brings blood flow out to the tips of the fingers, to the tips of the toes, and up to the top of the brain. So a lot of older people will use ginkgo if in the winter months they get cold fingers and toes, if just going outside, they just don't feel like they have the energy in their limbs, that's ginkgo. But ginkgo also brings that blood up to the brain. So kids very often distribute their blood in other areas. They shake their leg. They sit at that chair at school shaking their leg. We had those what were those little toys for a while, the little things that went round and round and round. They're moving their hands. So we want that blood when they have to do a math problem or they're learning history to go up to the brain. So these are 2 herbs that have been used for generations with kids with concentration.
Okay, really interesting. But let's go to the very, very basics for some mom out there who's never used an herb in her life. So why can't the rosemary essential oil, why can't that be used internally?
It's very controversial. And I tend to be on the side of don't take essential oils internally because they're very concentrated. They can burn the esophagus and they can actually give you ulcers inside your stomach. So we have to be very careful with essential oils. Essential oils were created for our olfactory system to stimulate our nose, to stimulate a different sensation. So, it's very interesting because when I work with a lot of adults, I share with them, this is off topic for a minute, but it's so fascinating, to do a meditative walk where you take a walk and the first couple minutes, you just listen to the sound. Then the next couple minutes, you look around and use the sight. The next couple minutes, you feel either the wind or the sun on you. And then at one point, you just inhale. So like if you're in Brooklyn with me, you're going to inhale car exhaust, but it's a smell, right? So if you're walking around Brooklyn, I want you to stop and smell the tree or a flower. So we have different senses, and essential oils were created, I believe, from the maker and from herbalists to just be inhaled. Whereas plant-based medicine, remember parsley, you're not going to get that much from smelling parsley. You need to eat parsley. Cilantro, you need to eat cilantro. You can smell it, it's nice, but it's not going to do the same thing as in your body. So I believe that these herbs need to be taken internally because they're food.
Okay, and so to take them internally, you either do them as a tincture or you buy the Gemo version of it, which will the bottle say that it's the Gemo version?
Yes. It's hard to find. I'm sharing with everybody because I know down the line that this is going to become more popular as people learn about it because it's so concentrated and so easy and so safe. So let's talk herbs for a minute. So you can make herb tea. Sure, herb tea is great. You can make a big pot of lemon balm tea. You can grow lemon balm on your windowsill, on your porch, in your backyard. We've discussed that lemon balm is antiviral, really good during cold and flu time. Good if you're traveling. It's a yummy taste. If a child's over a year, you can add honey to it. You can add maple syrup. You can take lemon balm tea. You can make it into ice cubes. You can make it into pops. You could give it to kids. If they're tea drinkers, you can add a little to their water. Lemon balm is calming and soothing, antiviral. It can help with stomach disorders. So we can always use teas in that way. Great. You can do that with catnip, chamomile, lemon balm, delicious and wonderful. You could even put some of the lemon balm in your chicken soups. You could put it in your bone broth. You could add it all over the plate. You could literally make your oatmeal in it. You could take lemon balm tea, put in your oats, make it, and you've got a yummy, oat in the morning with some lemon balm. When we're trying to help with concentration, I would use it either in tincture form, which it will say herbal tincture, or gemmo, because you're going to get a more concentrated dose that will go faster into the bloodstream.
Okay. And so as a parent, if I were giving this, let's say to my 7 or 8 or 9-year-old who's going to school and having a hard time concentrating, could I give them this rosemary or the ginkgo? Could I give it to them every single day of the entire school year?
Every single solitary day. You could give it to them every morning before they leave. It could be your routine. You give them a good mushy kiss. You give them a little shot of their ginkgo or rosemary, and you say, I know school's hard, but you got this, high five, and you kick them out the door. Sure. 100%.
Okay. Good to know. Okay. Is there another herb, though, called gudacola? Is that a good one for concentration?
Yes. And it actually helps, they say. So gudacola has been an herb for the brain for years and years and years. Very easy to grow. Actually, if you have a greenhouse, very often gudacola will just grow on the ground because it's here to help us. And gudacola really helps with understanding and integrating what you're learning into your life. Gudacola has been used in Ayurvedic medicine, and it's been used with Western herbalists for years and years. Gudacola you could make into a tea. Gudacola you could use in a tincture. And I have here that in Chinese and Ayurvedic medicine, and I am reading, it says it is believed to have cognitive enhancing properties. Traditionally, it has been used to support memory and intelligence by enhancing cerebral function. It helps also, like ginkgo and rosemary, to bring the blood up to your brain. It also has calming properties that helps reduce restlessness and hyperbehavior. And this is a phenomenal herb for children. Tea, you could make a gudacola tea. You could make half their water bottle gudacola, half water, make a little sweetener in there so they like it, squeeze a lemon, and they could sip on it throughout the entire day. And I think with all these children that are being labeled ADD, ADHD, that this gudacola should be integrated into their lives.
Wow. Okay, sometimes when I've had you on the show, you'll talk about these fascinating herbs, and then I go try to look for them at the store and cannot find them. And so do you have a favorite place to buy these? Like where would, a parent find gudacola?
Sure. So I don't represent any companies. I think that's important to know. I'll say my 3 favorite herbal tinctures are number 1, Herbalist and Alchemist. Number 2 is Herb Farm. That's HERBPHARM. And the last one is Wish Garden Herbs. The Herbalist and Alchemist and Herb Farm creates the herbs in tincture form. That's a liquid form. You can find Herb Farm on Amazon, and Herbalist and Alchemist has a presence on Amazon, but it's better to go to their website. So as an herbalist, as a master herbalist, I want to remind everybody that's listened to the previous calls that when I work with a child, I usually put 3 to 5 herbs in one bottle because kids are complicated. They can be happy and sad. They can be super easy and frustrated. They can be phenomenal at math and hate spelling. So when I'm looking at a child, I'm going to mix together as a master herbalist 4 or 5 herbs together to approach everything that they're going through. So now is a good time to just mention my first book is called Moodtopia, which we've discussed before. It's about herbs and moods. And I'm actually finishing up my book on kids, herbs, and emotional health, where we're going to be talking about in the book, as soon as I finish it, all the herbs that can help with loneliness, sadness, if your child's being bullied, if a child is hyper, if a child has trouble falling asleep, if a child has ADD or ADHD. We have to not look at it as a negative. We have to look at it as there's a lesson they need to learn. There's something they can grow from. But like if a kid's getting bullied, let's just talk about it for 1 minute. A kid's getting bullied. And you as a fabulous parent like all your listeners are, they want to solve this. But, sometimes the teacher doesn't get it. Sometimes the principal doesn't get it. I remember, I'm crossing my arms. I had one of my kids was getting bullied, and I went to the principal and I said, this is not okay. I said, I'd like to reach out to the mother. Maybe the 3 of us could have a discussion. And he said to me, oh, she'll never show up. I was like, what do you mean she'll never show up? So I called her. We're not going to take too long. And she said, I think they can work it out. I'm like, 8-year-olds? Like, really? Like, I think we should work on it. So what am I going to do? They're not going to kick this 8-year-old out of school. The mother just feels like, okay, so they'll punch each other a couple times. Oh my gosh, not my philosophy. So we got this kid that's getting bullied. So they can have a broken heart. They can really feel sad. So we've discussed there's an herb called rose. All rose petals are edible, not the ones from the florist. And you can either make a rose ice pop for your child, or you can give them rose tincture in the morning before they go to bed. Because even if this kid's going to look tough, their heart is aching. That makes sense? So I feel that as we're raising kids, and I know you're a mom of 6, I'm a mom of 7. It's not easy. It's very complicated. It's a juggling act. But our job is to make sure they learn the lesson, make sure they keep their good manners and say please and thank you. But that doesn't mean that they're not aching inside. It doesn't mean that they're not in pain. And as we're teaching these lessons, I know that herbs will help keep them strong and calm down their central nervous system that it can get really agitated. So that's why I love herbs for kids.
Okay, so that's really interesting about the sadness with the broken heart. And so obviously people go through sadness, or kids go through sadness for other things. I mean, there's grief, there's, hardships with friends, hardships of things at home. And so anyone, not just bullying, but anyone with sadness or grief can use this rose, correct?
Sure, of course. Like you said, it could be a passing of a loved one. It could be a best friend whose parents have to move out of town for a job. Sure, kids go through grief. And in our schools today, I do believe that they're recognizing it and discussing more emotions with kids. Certainly when I was in school, I don't want to age myself, but it wasn't even discussed, right? So now we know we're talking about grief. What are we doing about it? Do you know what I mean? Like, what are we doing about it? I taught a lot of classes this past year on grief and sadness and suffering. Been a big topic in the world. And like, for instance, besides giving herbs, which I love, I talked about something that I learned, that sometimes kids can take a rock and paint on it either their best friend's name or someone that they lost, and they can keep that rock in their room. And a rock is strong and hard, and you have to be strong. And then it will be a remembrance of whatever's causing them grief. So I would do a project like that with a kid, and then maybe I'd give them lemon balm to calm them down, or I'd give them some linden tea, which can help with digestion, because sometimes kids, when they're going through agitation, just like adults, some kids will overeat when they're nervous, And some kids lose their appetite when they're grieving. So when we're looking at kids and emotion and herbs, we're looking at the whole picture. But I do think herbs should be integrated in people's lives.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, what about lavender, though, for sadness and grief? Is that one that's beneficial?
Sure. So lavender essential oil, not internally, can be used just a couple drops on their pillow. If kids have trouble falling asleep, you can have a cold diffuser in their room that just diffuses lavender. You can put some in a bath, a couple drops. You can put some on their nightgown, a couple drops. That helps calm you down and it helps fall asleep. But what we use it for in a tea form or tincture is for stuck sadness. So rose is like for grief, we're going through it. You know, when someone's in the hospital, you bring them roses. Rose is for sadness. But lavender is for stuck sadness. Like a kid that says, do you remember when Jennifer teased my braids? I love them. And you're like, that was 4 months ago. I know, but it still bothers me. Or a kid that says, do you remember when my teacher embarrassed me, called on me, and everybody in the class laughed at me? And you're like, that's last year. You know what I mean? Like, so kids, like adults, can have trouble getting over things. And that's where lavender, taken internally, not the essential oil, either the tea or tincture, can help them move past that stuck sadness.
Oh, interesting. That sounds like most Americans need that, because I feel like that's something as adults, we get so fixated or stuck on something that we can't let go. So that's interesting.
Totally. Like I believe, so you can mix together, again, remember, I mix 3 or 4 or even 5 herbs together. So you can have sadness that's still there and stuck sadness and grief. So an adult and or child could mix together in a tea some lavender and some rose. I do find that kids don't love tea so much, and that's why I use it in tincture or gemmos, because I'd rather just give it to them quick. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, boom.
Yeah.
So I have in front of me a little shot glass. And what I do is you can get your kid their own shot glass. They have them with flowers, with giraffes, whatever you want. And they get their little shot glass, and you give an herb by taking a little bit of grape juice, put in anywhere from 10 to 25 drops of the herb of the tincture, and they drink it quickly. And I have, for those of you that are watching and those of you that can't see, is I have these adorable little droppers. They come in many, they have the caps have different colors. So cute. And when I am treating younger kids, I'm getting a brighter color. I will put a little bit of grape juice in a cup with a couple drops, and I'll pull this up like this. I'm filling up the dropper, and then the child can have it. So they can have their cute little shot glass, their cute little dropper with a color. And that's what we do when they're sick, have a stuffy nose, grieving something, girls that are premenstrual already at age 11. They're getting moody. We've discussed motherwort before. You can say to your little 11 or 12 or 13-year-old girl, you're such a great person. I love you so much. You've been a little moody lately. Have you noticed? And they're going to be, I'm not moody. Are you kidding me? And you go, here's a little motherwort. So
that's great.
It's a good tool for parents also. So that's something that I love.
That's good to know, to mix it with grapefruit, because I didn't know that little tip. So grape juice. I just give it right in their mouth. And so they'll appreciate the grape juice. So we'll have to change that. Let's take a quick break to hear from our show sponsor. When it comes to nutrition supplements for women, one brand stands above the rest. It's Needed. And here's why. Pregnancy and postpartum are some of the most demanding times in a woman's life. Your health and your baby's health, both now and for years to come, depend on your nutrition. With thousands of options out there, how do you know which is the best? Over 4,000 practitioners recommend Needed's perinatal and women's health supplements. Needed offers premium supplements for every stage, from A-quality support for those trying to conceive to lactation support for breastfeeding moms, and stress and sleep support for all women, including those in perimenopause or menopause stages. Another great supplement I love that they offer for all women, especially those who are pregnant, is omega-3s. I love that these nutrients work synergistically to support optimal egg health and fertility in mama and optimal brain, nerve, and eye in both mama and baby. You deserve to thrive, not just survive. Head over to thisisneeded.com and use code JIPodcast for an exclusive 20% off your first month of Needed products. Now back to the show. Okay, I want to talk about some other things that herbs can help that we see in kids. And something we see a ton in kids lately is the stress and anxiety. Yeah. And so what herbs are great for this anxiety that kids are experiencing?
Yeah, so we discussed this herb before. And my favorite herb to start with is skullcap. Skullcap is in the mint family. It is so phenomenal. You have to find the dose for your child, which could be from 15 drops to 40 drops. Do you see what I'm saying? So, and skullcap is calming and soothing for that anxious stomach without any side effects. Like, what I love about herbs are you can take them for a month straight and then stop taking them. You're not going to have any withdrawal symptoms. You could take it on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and forget to give it Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And Sunday you go, oh my gosh, my kid's going back to school tomorrow. Let me give it to them again. There's no withdrawal. And you only desire it, not in an addictive way, in a like, oh my gosh, it's time to calm down. So like, I love to travel. Like, just give me a ticket. I'll go anywhere. I love to see new places. But I will take skullcap before I go to the airport. I'm not afraid of flying, thank God. I'm not afraid of security, but you know what? Planes get delayed, whatever goes on. So I will take skullcap because it's just calming and soothing. I don't need to be like mean to the stewardesses or the people behind the counter because the plane is delayed. So skullcap is phenomenal, and it's really helpful with kids with anxiety and anxiousness.
And so you could just give them a few little drops before they go to school, and that would help them.
Probably depending on their weight and size, probably low dose would be 15 drops and all the way up to 30, 35 drops. Yeah. So sure, absolutely. First day of school, first day of camp, first day of holiday vacation. Sure, all the time.
Well, I have to tell you, I didn't know much about skullcap on the very first episode that you came on to of mine, and you taught about it, and I love it now. It is such a great herb, just like I use it when I feel like overwhelmed and like, there's so much going on, there's so much stress, and then I'll take it. And it's not like this instant thing, but within like 30 minutes, you're like, oh, okay, I can deal with all the stress that's on my plate right now. Okay, I've got this, is how I feel.
I love it. My favorite statement, what's the statement of life? Mine is, we're not in control of what happens to us, just how we respond. So we can be like so organized, and all the kids' clothes are lined up and they all have snacks, and we signed all their homework, and like, oh my gosh, you get a flat tire. You know what I mean? Like those things happen all the time. So I agree with you. Skullcap, it's not a drug. It's not like a caffeine high. But like you said, after you take it, you're like, okay, I got this. Okay, so my kids can go to school with a stain on their shirt. Okay. And that's what lots of herbs do. Lots of them besides skullcap.
Okay, good to know. What about though calc carb? Is that good for anxiety as well?
So let's jump to homeopathy. So homeopathy is a whole nother discussion, and I have a good 50 pages in my upcoming book about homeopathy. So
because calc carb is a homeopathic
remedy. So the perfect transition. Look at that.
Okay.
So, homeopathy, I'm holding it up for those that can see it. Those that can't, it's the little ballies you put under your tongue, like arnica. You fall, you bang yourself, you take arnica. You get your fingers stuck in a door, God forbid, you take hypericum. You get dental work, hypericum. So there's 8,500 homeopathic remedies on the market. When I finished school, there was only 3,500. I did a 5-year program in homeopathy. Homeopathy is different than herbal medicine. So with herbal medicine, you're taking the plant, putting it in grain alcohol or glyceride. It is just the plant. When we're dealing with homeopathic, we use minerals, we use plants, we use animal, like different milks from foxes and lions and cows and human. So homeopathy is you take the ballies, you put them under your tongue and they dissolve. So homeopathy in my study is going to help even deeper with ADD, by the way, and can help even deeper with a chronic problem that we have: chronic separation anxiety, chronic nightmares, chronic fear of new places, right? So when you work with a homeopath, we take an hour and a half history. We ask, what's your sleep rituals? What's your stools like? What are your favorite foods? Are you hot or cold? Do you tend to be more aggressive? Do you tend to be shyer? And we take what is called a history, and then we give a homeopathic remedy that meets the vibrational energy of the person. So some people you meet, you hug them and you want to like fall into their arms. Other people, you hug them, you're like, okay, it's a little too close, right? So we all get off this energy. So homeopathic is more of a medicine that helps temper the energetic reactions. So homeopathy is more specific to the personality. So calc carb kids are kids who would rather stay home than go to a play date. They had separation anxiety. They love carbs. It makes them feel better. And they tend to be couch potatoes as opposed to another homeopathic remedy like coffea, which are those kids that can't sit still. They're hyper-focused on 100 things. They can multitask. They can be playing a game on their phone, building a Lego set, and listening to a podcast. You're like, well, what are you focusing in on? Quiet, busy, right? So that would be a kid that's more coffea. So the coffea kid would have trouble sitting in school. You have to change subjects with them quickly. They can do math for like 20 minutes and they have to go to science. Whereas the calc carb kid's going to be a little slower and more analyzing of the situation. They're going to figure out the math problem in a slower, more methodical way. So homeopathy is something I really recommend when we have a chronic problem. And we don't have Western medicine for this. We don't. We have Zoloft and Prozac and anxiety medicines like Ativan and Clonopin, which have their place. There are some kids that need Prozac and Zoloft and some adults. Sure, for sure. And if they help you, I'm the happiest person in the world. Sometimes people need Ativan for sure. You have fear of flying, take it. But they don't usually get to the root of the problem, whereas a homeopathic remedy would. So let me say that in your house of 5 kids or 3 kids or 1 kid, or you could have adopted 10 kids, you can have skullcap, lemon balm, rose, lavender, all gudacola, and you can dish them out as needed for sure. When it comes to a chronic problem, I see the success in homeopathy. And you can still also give the lemon balm and skullcap because it changes the deep reason that this person is behaving this way. Fascinating.
Oh, that is fascinating. Okay, so that's good to know. So calc carb is good for the anxiety and stress as a homeopathic, but is there a good one for concentration in kids for that like ADHD child or not necessarily?
With homeopathy, as opposed to using the ginkgo or the rosemary, we would have to really hear what's going on with that child. What is going on?
Okay, makes sense.
You know, it's so interesting because sometimes we have kids that come and they're in their home, they're speaking a different language. And in school, they're speaking English. So even though they're an intelligent kid, their anxiety is because they don't feel so great with the language. Do you see what I'm saying? So we could give them skullcap, but we could also give them a homeopathic remedy called gelsinium. Gelsinium is a homeopathic remedy we use for flus, by the way, winter colds and flus, but it's for people that have stage fright. So what does stage fright mean? It doesn't mean that you're a keynote speaker. I'm a keynote speaker. I don't have stage fright. I have other issues we could discuss for hours, not stage fright. So what does stage fright mean? It could be a child just having to show up at school. That's stage fright. It could be a child that's struggling with English. That's stage fright. So we could give them skullcap, but if we give them also gelsinium, it can help build that self-confidence from the inside out.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I've used gelsinium, but for colds or flus, things like that. So I didn't realize it can help with that as well.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about another thing. You said you mentioned this, that it's going to be in your book, but sleep is a really hard thing for kids these days because well, there's lots of reasons. I think sleep is hard for kids these days. But a lot of parents just turn right to the melatonin. And so are there herbs or homeopathics or things that they could turn to instead?
Sure. So I want to say, if I can give you my input here, that the world is in chaos. If anybody hasn't noticed, the world is in chaos. Okay. I'd like to make that like the foundation. So even if there's not like rallies in your neighborhood, their energetics are in the world. So what happens is these kids that are much more vibrationally sensitive than we are, because we become a little callous as we age, let's be honest, they can feel the energy of what's going on in the news. Even if they're not reading the newspapers, they feel it. So I agree with you 100% that sleep is much more intimidating than I think it's ever been. Fear of the dark, fear of someone coming in, fear of bad things happening. Sure. And the sad thing is that it's happening. Do you know what I mean? Like when I was growing up, they'd say there's not a boogeyman under the bed. And then your mom would turn on the light and you'd look in the clouds, you look under your bed, there's not a boogeyman. So either we just know more, but there's like boogeyman. You know what I mean? It's scary. So I love the herb. I'm saying because we have to acknowledge that. Like to me, like if a child's afraid, I wouldn't say, oh, there's nothing to be afraid of. I'd say, well, you have your mother and father, or just your mother, or just your father, whatever the dynamics is, or a grandmother. And we're really here to protect you and take care of you. Like I would justify their fears for sure. But there is an herb called passion flower, which has been used for generations. Safe while breastfeeding, safe while pregnant, safe for geriatric people, and safe for kids. Passion flower herb in tincture. We also have it in gemmo. We also have it in tea form. Helps with that brain that is cycling and cycling and cycling. You know, when you get into bed and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't do this. Kids can do the same thing. George was mean to me. How am I going to talk to George tomorrow? And Sally, I didn't share my snack with her. So passion flower can really help. I would mix passion flower with lemon balm because they work really well together. But if you want to give it for kids in sleep, you can't like give it to them at 10 to 9 when you want them asleep by 8:30, right? You know what I mean? So usually with lemon balm and passion flower, I like to give it around dinner time and then maybe before their bath and before they go to sleep again. So it's a little bit of a bother for caregivers to give it, but passion flower gets into the system slowly. You could just do it at dinner time and before they go to bed. And sometimes you can keep a little shot glass with a little bit of grape juice and passion flower for that child that does wake up in the middle of the night and have trouble falling back to sleep. So you can make it their habit that they can just take it and have them fall asleep. So those are the herbs that I love for sleep. Valerian has been used for generations with kids also. And valerian, you have 50% of the population that it helps and 50% that it doesn't. People that love love valerian really do well with it. Other people find that it just doesn't do anything. Whereas passion flower and lemon balm is kind of like 9.75 out of 10 people will respond. But if you grew up in a family where your grandmother gave valerian or you yourself gave valerian, that is also something to try with kids. About melatonin, I don't love it, but sometimes it is so needed because if they're up all night, they're just not going to do well in school. If they don't do well in school, they're going to be insecure. If they're insecure, they're going to be more agitated at night, and it gets into this vicious cycle. So with melatonin, if you're going to give it for a month, try to reboot the system, have some rituals, and start integrating that passion flower and lemon balm. I'm not going to say no to melatonin because a lot of kids that were agitated in school take melatonin, get a good at least 7 to 10 hours sleep, and then they're better during the day. So each case is going to be different.
Yeah, I just don't love melatonin used over and over and over. I'm more like, let's figure out the root cause of why this child is having a hard time sleeping and is so agitated. And let's, do a little discovery before we just always supplement with that. That's really good to know about the passion flower because I may just use that myself. I'm a person that lays down at night and then I'm thinking of, 30 different things throughout the day. So that's good to know. What about, though, kids that get tired too easily or don't have enough energy through the day, which in fact is more an adult issue, I think. But for people, let's say, that don't get the energy they want.
So I'm a big advocate of protein. And I know that our kids and most adults are not eating enough protein. They wait for dinner for their protein. And protein can also be nuts, beans, tahina, and hummus. You see what I'm saying? And you don't have to have a lot of protein. You need 3 bites of protein. You know what I'm saying? So it's 3 bites of eggs for breakfast, 3 bites of salmon for lunch, and 3 bites of chicken for dinner, if that's all you can handle. But I really see that our excess carbs, which I know you agree with, tend to make us more sleepy. A lot of people, they have the French fries and the pizza and they're out, even if it's midday. You have that big sandwich with bread. And I love bread, I wish I could eat it. I'm only 5 feet tall. I can't eat a lot of it. So protein is super important for energy. So I always remind my clients that the way we were created was that babies breastfeed 8 to 12 times in a 24-hour period. Oh my God, I'd make breast milk last for 12 hours, nurse 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. and leave me alone. But that's not how it's created. It's every 1 to 3 hours, right? Then you have a toddler, and there's nobody listening to this that would go to the park without a snack. I would never get in a car without a toddler without 3 or 4 snacks, because when they are hungry, they lose it. So you try to give a toddler breakfast, then you give them a snack an hour and a half later. You try to give them lunch, you give them a snack again, then you give them dinner. And raising 7 kids, I'd always give my kids oatmeal before they went to bed because I don't need them at 1 o'clock in the morning saying they're hungry. Then we become adults and we're like, okay, yeah, I can eat twice a day. I don't think you can. And that's where I think most of the exhaustion is. I'd rather you have a little bit of egg in the morning, a couple hours later, an apple with some almond butter. A couple hours later, some lettuce and salmon. A couple hours later, maybe some Mary Gone cracker with some tahina. And then I'd rather for dinner have some chicken and vegetables, right? So when we eat like this, which I'm guilty and don't do it, but I have to be a little hypocrite, that will give people energy. But from an herbal standpoint, there's an herb called rhodiola. We use the root of it. It smells like a rose, and it's been used with athletes for generations because it gives you a boost and keeps you calm at the same time. So when you drink a cup of coffee, you get this boost of energy, right? And then you crash down. So with rhodiola, it gives you a boost. It gives you the energy to hang on to in a really good way. We also have ginsengs, and ginsengs have been used in Chinese medicine for generations. We have a very gentle ginseng called urethro, which works very well in a very subtle way. You usually have to take more of it than you think you do. And then we have the Asian ginseng and the American ginseng. And that can also give people a boost. Usually you need smaller amounts than the rhodiola. So ginsengs are something to keep in mind. I mean, in Asia, that's the main thing. You can walk into a drugstore, they're going to have some. So it's not the energy drinks that we have here. It's the ginseng, the Siberian ginseng, and you take a little shot of it and you do get that boost.
Oh, I love that. I wish our grocery stores were full of that rather than all of the energy drinks. Okay. I also have one other question, though, about kids and what they can take, because right now, at least here in Utah, there's pollen everywhere. Is there something else they can give, though, instead of the Allegra? What herbs or homeopathics can help them?
So I'm going to go back to my GMOs. We have a product. When I say we, I'm not formulating. I, in my office, use a product called Allgen by a company called Genestra, who I don't represent. And I have never found anything that works better. You just put 3 drops under your tongue 2 to 3 times a day or 3 to 4 times a day. And I'm very, very impressed with it. I also like an herb called eyebright. Eyebright is a phenomenal herb for those itchy eyes, those allergies that are just in the eyes. I also like freeze-dried nettles. You can get them in capsules from a company called Eclectic Institute. The nettles at a certain time of their growth has a natural antihistamine in it. And it's just phenomenal at helping with those allergies. But I'm going to go back to homeopathy because when we speak about allergies, one kid or adult can have the back of their palate so itchy. The next one can have itching in their ears. The next one can have itchy in their nostrils. The other one could be sneezing. So I'm going to mention these names. And on my website, under free handouts, under Sara-Chana.com, it's not included in our Just Ingredients handout, but I do have an allergy handout there also, which everybody can get for free. But there's homeopathic like Sabadilla, sneezing. We have a homeopathic remedy called Allium cepa. If the eyes are just dripping and dripping and dripping, we have eyebright if our eyes are itchy, and we have Wyethia if we have the back of the throat and the ears itchy. So when I'm dealing with allergies, again, we have eyebright, we have nettles, we have the Algen, that's general. But the more specific we get, the faster the child or adult's going to be feeling better.
Oh, that's so good to know, because I know a lot of parents are dealing with kids dealing with those seasonal allergies. Okay, so if I am a new mom to this, how do I figure out, is it going to say on the bottle like the dosage for the herbs, or how do we figure it out?
It's hard. That's why you have to have an herbalist that you follow and trust. Moodtopia, in Moodtopia, my first book, I do speak about dosage. And in my upcoming book, I speak about dosage. Sometimes you can call the company, but legally, they're going to just put a standard. They're going to say like 15 to 35 drops. So it's hard to find the dosage exactly. You have to be patient and experiment. It's like you give 3 kids a bowl of pasta. One will eat 2 bowls. One, you're lucky if they'll eat a half, and the other one takes 3 bites and they're full. You're like, you can't be full. You didn't even eat 3 strings in the spaghetti. So it's the same thing with herbs, whereas medications, there's a dosage. Herbs are more personal and interactive with the child. So you can look up Moodtopia, and I do have a page that has all the dosing because it can get complicated. And I like to dilute herbs. Yeah, I like to dilute them. Yeah.
Good to know. Okay, so also if I'm starting this and I'm a mom with young little kids, are there any herbs that I need to avoid for children under a certain age?
Yes. And most of those herbs are not on the general market. Like an herbalist like myself can order it. I don't think I would give the ginsengs to kids. They're a little powerful. They tend to be more of an adult herb. But all the herbs that we've spoken about today on this show and on your previous shows with me are safe. We can do echinacea. I'm just going to run through them. I feel like the more people hear, we can do elderflower, we can do elderberry, we can do lemon balm, we can do linden, we can do eyebright, we can do valerian, we can do a little bit of rhodiola, we can do lots of skullcap, we can do motherwort. So most of the herbs that are available on Amazon or other websites that are through Herb Farm, Wish Garden Herbs, or Herbalists and Alchemists are going to be safe for adults and children.
Okay, that's good to know. So as we wrap up here, herbs to me are very overwhelming, and I know they are to other people. And why is that? It can be simple, right? Or we just overcomplicate it. What advice do you have for us that are making it overwhelming?
It's so simple that it becomes complicated, right? So we're just used to complications. So I always say, in my opinion, start with 2 or 3 herbs. Let's say you buy skullcap for nervousness, lemon balm for viruses and colds and to calm down, and elderflower, which I like even more than elderberry. Elderflower is for a stuffy nose and a fever. And you just experiment with those herbs. When I use the word experiment, you're not doing an experiment. You're seeing what works with your family. And it's very interesting because I remember I was in the Middle East and we were on one of those like dune buggy, through the deserts. And we pull over to the side and the driver just picked a plant. I mean, like, I'm an herbalist. He had no idea I was an herbalist. And he picked a plant and he had a big thermos of water and he gave everybody a couple leaves in their cups, poured boiling water over it and walked away. And it was normal. He didn't ask anybody, what medication are you on? Is this safe for you? This was just an herb he and his grandparents and his great-grandparents used for generations. You know what I mean? And I sat there as an herbalist going, my mind is blown. My mind is blown. And I was with students, and the students were like, this is so cool. I didn't know you could do this. Like, it was so normal. So I'd like to start to normalize herbs. That's why I do podcasts like this, because I want people to start to know that herbs are part of our lives. Like, when you're making a chicken soup, you're not like, oh my gosh, how much parsley can I add? If you're making a dip for bread, you're not like, oh my God, did I use too much garlic? Like, I'm really concerned. And garlic is an herb. If you're putting onions in your chicken or your stew, you're not like, oh my gosh, I used 3 onions yesterday. Can I use 3 onions today? So onions, garlic in the materia medica is an herb. Parsley, dill, cilantro, these are all herbs. So we've kind of gotten away from them, and there's something we can integrate. Like, if you only wanted to grow one plant, let's say you say, okay, I want to grow one herb, grow lemon balm, hard to kill, easy to grow. You could put it in everything and start to make it normal in your life. And it will become normal in your kids' lives. I mean, you and I could do a whole nother show on why herbs are not popular anymore in the United States, Canada, and certain parts of even South America right now. But it's here for us. They grow. And what I love even more is I love to go to the Brooklyn Botanical Gardens. I love it. And they have all these gorgeous plants that they plant. And I, as an herbalist, am always looking at the weeds that are growing in between the daffodils. I'm looking at what's growing in between the pine trees. And they grow no matter what. You can give them water, not give them water. It's so interesting because with global warming, global change, whatever we think is going on, there is change. So what? Change is good. The herbs grow at the same time. I'm from New York. Whether we have a hot winter or a cold winter, whether we have a snowy winter or a rainy winter, it blows my mind. The herbs grow at the same time, and they're here for us. I've told you this story before, and I'm going to say it again, and I know we're running out of time, but I want to say that I was in Midtown Manhattan taking a class with a master herbalist, and she said, if you want to heal a person, see what grows around them. So I stomped over to her in my high heels, my lipstick, my glasses on my head. Not the hippie type. And I said, I live in Brooklyn. What grows there? Cars, cement, fire escapes. And I've told you this before. She handed me a little Peterson guide and said, see what's growing around you. And I took a 1-block radius walk and I found 10 medicinal plants growing tires in alleyways. It's so funny because in one of my alleyways is a whole vineyard of grapes. Nobody knows they're there. Someone dropped some grape seeds years ago. And every year these grapes grow. People drive their cars down there, throw out garbage. So the plants are growing no matter what we do to our environment. I've never seen a change in the herbs. It's amazing.
It is amazing. It's nature showing that nature wants to help us, heal us, nourish us, but we've got to simplify it and learn about them and just use them because they're here for our benefit. And so we need to take advantage of that. And like you said, we could do a whole nother show, because I was going to ask you why herbs aren't used today like they've been for centuries, but I'm sure we have lots of different answers for that.
Yes.
Probably
we'll
one you can't answer in 1 minute.
Yes, for sure not.
And so, yeah, we need to, as people, like I said, learn about these herbs, but like you said, use them, just start playing with them. Like, we don't worry about how much garlic or how much onion. So let's not worry so much about it, and let's just do it.
Yes. So for your Just Ingredients viewers, which they're all great, because when they send me messages on Instagram, I want you to know your listeners are smart, intuitive, and they always ask great questions. I try really hard on Instagram to answer everybody. It's very hard, but I really try to answer because it's great questions. But I do, besides a handout, I'm going to give a link to everyone for free. I have a 1-hour class on the basics of herbs, because you and I were so much discussed. So I show in that video how to make a tincture. They don't have to make it, they can buy it. What herbs are safe for kids? And I actually have that question answered for everybody that would like to just see what the herbs look like, because there's just so much to learn. And when we demystify it, it empowers a person and they'll feel stronger. So I'm really excited for your listeners to see that video and get the handout, and send you emails with questions, send me questions, and we're just going to start educating the moms and grandmothers and teenagers of the world today. It's exciting.
Oh, I love that. We should do a whole nother one on teenagers, and the girls are dealing with PMS and cramps and moodiness and all of that. We have so many we could talk about, but thank you for what you're doing on social media, trying to teach people about herbs. And thank you for giving this link and this resource, such a great resource. And tell my listeners, if they haven't heard your podcast episodes and things, tell them where they can come find you.
Sure. So at my website, which is Sara-Chana.com, it's Sara without an H. So it's SARACHANA.com. Tons of resources. And I'm going to have a link that says Just Ingredients, so they don't have to, they can bypass everything and just go to what we've discussed. So that's Sara-Chana.com. And then on Instagram, it's Sara-Chana S for Silverstein, SARACHANA. And you can always send me messages through Instagram. As I said, I really try to answer them. And I try to the best of my ability a couple times a week, sometimes only once a week, to do a 1 minute or 30 seconds on a new plant. So like I was just out the other day and there was a mulberry tree right there with mulberry. So I took my little phone and I took my little camera and I just made a 1 minute little video on mulberry because they're completely edible. So I try to do that on Instagram.
Oh, such a great resource. And yeah, listeners, if you don't follow her, go follow her. You will learn a lot. And I loved your book, Moodtopia. So as adults, go read her book, because the book is amazing and gives so many great resources of how to help ourselves through all the different emotions that we deal with here as adults in this world. And as you know, Sara-Chana, I always end my podcast with asking my guests what they have found to be the best ingredient in life. And I've now asked you this a couple times. So do you have another good ingredient that you love in life?
Yes, but I do want to compliment you before we answer that quickly, because I was telling you before we opened that I have a young girl that works with me, and she was really struggling with deodorant, and she really had a problem with it. She just didn't find anything worked well for her. And I gave her a deodorant of yours, and she said that it just changed her life. She was getting little cysts under her arms. So I want to compliment, before I answer that, your work, your products, everything that you're doing. I also have all my clients follow you just so they know when they go shopping how to look for ingredients, how to stay away. So I really, before we answer that, I really want to compliment the work that you're doing. I think it's really important. And that's why I'm so honored to be on your show. So
thank you so much.
My one ingredient in life that I think, and I know that you sent me this and I was thinking about it, I think, and I don't remember what I said in the past, but I think today, random acts of kindness is the most important thing we can do. It's called RAC. Clinical studies show that when you do a random act of kindness, it lowers your blood pressure And studies show that people do it live longer. But besides ourselves, it helps people around us. So if you hold the door open for an older lady with packages, she doesn't care if you're in a good mood or a bad mood, if you're having financial problems, if you fought with your husband or your kids, just open the door for her. Just compliment someone. If you see someone that has a beautiful shirt, you don't know, they could be having the worst day in the world, and just go over and compliment them. If a kid says, excuse me, when they bump into you, just say, wow, that's a superhero. You must have a cape under there. So I think the key ingredient where the world is today is those of us that are trying to bring peace to the world, just start by little tiny acts of kindness.
Oh, I love that so much because 1, it helps you with your health. 2, it's free. It doesn't cost you anything. And 3, it doesn't cost you time. 2 seconds to give a compliment or to hold that door open. And so I love that. We can all really take that to heart and try to do better at doing little random acts of kindness. So thank you so much, Sara-Chana, for being here. Thank you for trying to educate others on the amazing things that nature provides us. And thank you for taking the time to be here.
All the best. It's an honor to be on your show. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. Remember to subscribe to the Just Ingredients podcast to learn more about your health and good ingredients to life. Plus, get daily tips at just.ingredients on Instagram.